Another stunning day of candidates chess. Round 9, they're in Cyprus. We're searching for the next challenger to the world chess champion, Gukesh D. 3 of the 4 games just left me blown away. You couldn't call it till the last moment. Thankfully, the 4th restored order, brought balance to the force. Let's dive in with this one. The most exciting, I'd say. Fabiano Caruana with white, Anish Giri with black here, and they're both chasing hard. Yavakir Sindarov, who's been destroying it. Let's see it, baby. An Italian stallion on the board. We've hardly seen it this tournament. This might be the first game. If in doubt, always copy your opponent until you get checkmated. The knight's in the game. We've seen this stuff before. Tried and tested. Grandmother territory here. And the pawn comes out to a5. Boss move. It can also come to a6. I'm about to give you some serious insight. First we see the pawn push, take control of g4 and i4. Don't sleep on that one. And now with that bishop on e6 and the pawn on a5, it makes this move available. Keep lots of pieces on the board, have an interesting fight. You can't do it with the pawn on a6. And with the pawn on a6, you can sometimes take and go for some quick pawn expansion. Think pawn b4, a4. Different game, different gravy. This game backs up prophylactic chess, or bishop backs up I should say. Chewbacca's favourite move, the Wookiee one. Knight rotation, common stuff. We've seen it before. White takes the centre, stands a smidge better, but black is solid as a rock and can start stirring it up a little bit on the king side. Now it gets interesting, because after Fabi goes on this standard knight manoeuvre, he now does not save this bishop. I mean, everyone and his dog's doing that, right? Russian school of chess, save your bishops, stack them up. But this wasn't played. Knight g3. One of the absolute top moves of the engine. They're so booked up, these guys. But Giri's like, grrr, takes that bishop pair, even makes the eating noise at the board. We love to see it. And now, Fabi actually steps a bit wrong. Now as black, you can immediately take. Think a quick d5 if white takes with the pawn. If e5, f6, different stuff. But instead Giri goes for pawn a4, clamping on this queenside structure. Now, Fabi should play bishop e3, always get your bits out, maintain this central tension, but he plays pawn to d5. Now this is deep stuff, right? But basically, it's a strategic mistake. Why? Well, the top guys will tell you for realsies, but here's my take on it. Black's actually controlling the pawn breaks now. c6 stuff, f5 stuff. You've given up your advantage. Black's a smidge better. Bishop g5 was played. Don't blunder your queen, of course. Always avoid it with the party hat if you can. Bishop drops back. Challenge down here. And after takes, we don't see rook takes. Playable, but not actually best. Pawn takes. A very stinky pair of double pawns that really only a mother could love, but you do take away the knight outpost. What a battle we've got. b5 gains space, stops this break immediately. So Fabi, what does he do? Well, b4 you can say, hey Fabi, why'd you play pawn b4?
I don't know, just wanted to see your thought process on b4.
Why did I play b4?
Yeah, why you played b4?
I think it's a fine move. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I was considering like b3 also, but I think it's the same idea, right?
In either case, he can take, but he can also not take after b3. So I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Don't you just love an awkward chess interview? One of the greatest scenes in the history of the game, watching them squirm, the asker of the question and the respondee. Love it. Takes en croissant was played. This one now takes back, and you've got to fight for the A file. It takes on extra significance when there's only one of them. They're like commodities, as Danny Wrench would say. The less of them there are, the rarer they become. C4's explosive, and queen b6 now to keep an eye on pawn c5, especially if a rook ever supports it. Very thematic break. Then if pawn takes, you get in d6. So knight f5 was played by Fabi. Now rook fe8, bit of prophylactic chess. This knight rotates around. Anish now plays the pawn forward, and this is actually a more ambitious move. Because if a knight ever rotates round to d3, finds some long circuit, the pawn could become weak. If c5, you take. So this actually plays for more, for pressure, but neither player wants a draw. Who's going to clinch it here? Because Fabi's got ideas too. 2-2, keep saying 2. Don't sleep on them. If you just immediately double the rooks here, then there's queen g4. And it can get a bit dangerous. You know, you have to give up the bishop here, for example. There is a possible attack. Okay, different game, not played. Anish correctly plays knight takes on h4, eliminating one of those attacking forces, then playing the rook over to the a file. Rook e2 looks to challenge over here. Queen a7, 19 points of pressure just barreling down the file now, and you have to keep an eye on this e3 pawn, very annoying for white. Rook c1 prepares c5, and that's why the queen bounces back. You can still play c5, sure, but after takes, you haven't got d6. With the queen on a7, you have got d6, because takes, and the queen crashes through. Here the queen can take, black's doing great. So Fabi can't achieve it. Probably he should take, play queen f3, keep these ideas of knight f5 alive, keep Giri guessing. But he plays knight f3 and just goes on one of these awful knight maneuvers. Should probably head back now, especially after this weakening move. But he plays this. Anyone for a knight maneuver, as they say. But king h7, rook takes, and you'd love to get the knight to d3, support c5, but then the e3 pawn drops. You can just never quite arrange it. I was trying to make it work, couldn't. Queen heads here, the rook can go to d2. There's a lot of problems. So knight c2 was tried. You're going to see the big idea. Excellent snaking around from Giri. Queen d3 seeks to cover some pawns. Bishop g6. And this is no good. It looks really natural, but it's not working. Black is actually winning with rook b2. Looks a bit counterintuitive, given the file. But then there's this c6 follow-up stuff. It's quite subtle. Takes was, however, played. Now this is a mistake, but only for one very specific reason. Giri now plays the move. Pawn c5, and Fabi really has to be playing pawn takes en croissant, and say it in your best French accent just for good measure. This is a must-play move. Now, it looks counterintuitive because there's huge pressure on the e4 pawn now. But this is the point. And say you go bishop takes. There's this really cool tactic. Knight takes on b4. If takes, there's takes. And you're alive and kicking in this endgame. If, what was the line? Queen b7. Queen takes on d6. Bishop takes on g2. Well, you're not getting mated. Something like this playable, bishop e4 best. If takes, something like this. Should be leading to a draw, right? No matter what gets played. But we didn't see takes en croissant. You had to do it. Even if you didn't calculate all the lines, you just had to. Because this is straight losing. It gets a double question mark on lead chess. It really is bad. Queen a7 hits the knight as well as the invasion square. The queen covers, but now you can transfer. Queen d7, queen f7, prepare f5. Giri goes for this plan, however. It's not as precise, but it's still good. Hang on a minute, aren't you overextended? I'm going to eat that pawn. Queen e7 shuts down the dreams, because if you take with the king, there's pawn f5 check. Black's doing great. So this queen reactivates, looking for knight c2, but first getting the queen into the game, covering the pawn. But it allows an absolutely stunning finish. I mean, really beautiful. What do you think Giri played here? f5 check. And it looks impossible. Pawn takes, will now wash your point. Bishop takes, queen takes, check. Where are you headed here? What's the idea? If you move the bishop, then there's a discovered check. Lose your queen. What is, the only winning move in the position? It's the move of king to h6. I maybe just slipped it away there. Why does it win? Well, let's ask the obvious first. What if you munch this bishop? Well, then there's e4 hitting the queen. And of course she can't take. So queen f1, let's say. Something like this. But then this is check. And also mate. The pawn took away the f3 square. That's why you had to first push and then play the checkmate. Coming back here. Say you don't eat the bishop. Say you step back with the king. Well, now there's e4 check. Winning the queen. So takes with the queen is forced. But then there's the stunner. Killer. Bishop h5 check. Awesome calculation from Giri. If you step up with the king, this is a mate. If you step back with the king, this is a lost queen. If you block with the pawn, then this is really nice. Takes. And then you win the queen. And soon mate the king. If step up, you get mated again. Or even like this time. Such cool lines. Giri wins it. He is the one now chasing Sindarov most closely. Wow. Let's jump to Sindarov's game. He was playing with black here, and boy was it fireworks. It looks like one of these quiet, Queen's Gambit declined, nothing much going on. Pawn gets munched, hang on, we've seen this before. You don't take right, because otherwise black's taking your centre. Hang on, wait, you can do it here. Because these bishop moves have been included, now if black munches, white's crashing through here with check and 4 Carus, and it's not fun. So this is one of the best moves, check. Now of course there's 5 ways to block here, but queen d2, king e2 have all been played out to a draw at the highest levels of chess. If you block with either of the knights, well fine, doable. But then there's a ton of pressure coming on the e4 pawn. It's not truly defended, no matter which knight you blocked with. So bishop d2 is selected here. Not that knight c3 isn't very playable. Now you are going to win a piece. So takes was played. Knight recaptures. This pawn is covered. However, castles, this pawn is not after a6. Although you can go e5 and knight d5. It's a different game. They obviously know what they're doing. This is the move that Matthias selected. a6 kicks back the knight. There it goes. Central pawn drops here. You could castle kingside immediately, but queen e2 is started with. Now we see bishop b7. Very natural. Of course, we castle the king. Whoa! Matthias castles the king queenside. I mean, it's at this moment that most people fell off their chair in the studio. Everyone was just grabbing their misses. Babe, come quick. You won't believe it. Matthias, German guy, mad sight. He's just castled queenside. You won't believe it. In a Queen's Gambit, move 13. It's unreal stuff. Quick, come and see. All right, soon. Okay. I mean, truly spectacular. Even the wives and girlfriends were coming out to see this one. Queen b6 was now played. You could go king b1, drop back the bishop. No siree, what is going on? Who is this guy? He's been turning up to make draws, and now he just goes for absolute carnage. The knight stumbling back to e8. The best line here of the engine is to keep pushing pawns. The next 3 moves are literally h4, h5, h6. Absolutely love this chess. But we get bishop b3. Boo. Don't move your pieces. Move your pawns. Storm the barricades. Great manoeuvring, to be fair, by Sindarov. Bishop c2. Looks kind of weird. Kind of slow. However, it does prepare pawn b3 to defend in some lines. Because look at this. The rook's on the way. a5 was played. Knight b3 is a way better knight move. Threatening this one. And if takes, well, the pawn can take. And you've got a bit of something quite solid, actually. But this was played, allowing this kind of clumsy knight to trade itself. Then rook fb8. You could play b3, best move. But we get queen d4, sort of x-ray defending b2, pressuring the black queen. But now bishop c6. Look at the pressure. I mean, this is why you only castle queenside in this line if you are brave. Some real kahunas on you. b3's on the board. a4, of course. And the best line here is pushing b4, letting the pawn drop and just playing a miserable endgame. However, not played. The move Matthias selects is knight takes on a4. An absolute howler. Because black is now -3. Sindarov is running away with the entire event. I mean, it's done. Pack your bags. Everybody go home. He's going to win again. And with black, this is unreal. He takes with the bishop. He allows the queens off the board. He allows a drawn endgame. Let's rewind that. What are you doing, Sindarov? You've got plenty of time on the clock as well. Queen b7's technically strongest. Queen a5 also really good. a3 to stop rook b4. And here's an example of an endgame way better for black. You're winning one of these pawns. Really, really problematic trying to hold this one. Clean pawn down. Let's compare that to the game. Takes. Queen's gone. You have to take with the pawn. There's some back rank issues if not. After you distract this rook, if this rook takes. So this is how it went here. Takes. Now Sindarov had seen this stuff and he just misevaluated it. Thought good for black. And sure, there is pressure. Yes. Is there winning pressure? No. This is a drawn endgame. Matthias knows his stuff. He's used his Lotus chess. Probably. It was made in Germany. He's a German guy. Surely he's used Lotus chess. He knows his end games. Get yours in the link down below. It's absolutely incredible. They even do end games now. This is how things went. And eventually, pawns get munched. Black king's too far away. This is how it ended. Sindarov really let that one get away. Did not see that coming. Sorry, Sindarov, I should say. Pronounce it correctly. Let me show you the Prague game here. He kicked off with pawn d4 again. Does not want Wei Yi, the Chinese Grandmaster's Petrov defense. They love playing it, the Chinese. Wei Yi no different. c5 sets up a wonderful pawn cube. You really do have to watch out for the stray pubes at the Grandmaster level. Shaved, of course. If you want to get ambitious, you could go e5, d4. But this is how things went. e3. Wei Yi trying to keep it super solid, but watch this from Prague. He finds a way now with this e-pawn to shake it and bake it. Now Wei Yi's doing well here. There's no way he's not seen this at home. He pressures the bishop, queen covers, knight hopping now, opens tension, so Prague drops back. Big fight for the e5 square going on here. Bishop f6 covers it, but hang on. Surely that runs into e5 and then h3 to come next. But no, there's a tactical point and it's this. You can take. It looks impossible. White's hoovering up. But this is the problem. The sting at the end of the tail, the bishop drops on c4. So this is why e5's not working. This is why this whole line's possible. If h3, knight into this square. So bishop d6 was now played. Rook moves. If you love this kind of insightful commentary, please do consider subscribing. Membership down below as well if you're feeling really extra supportive of the channel. Few members only videos there. Let's carry on with the show here. The rook eyeballs the queen. Knight hopping now into the e5 square. I mean, it's very complicated. But basically, Wei Yi's got his finger on the pulse. Knows what he's doing. You know, this looks really problematic. The rook's hitting the bishop. The bishop's defended by the knight. So let's kick the knight. Ah, but you can't. The pawn is pinned. And this is what I mean. These kind of moves, he knows his stuff. He knows what's going on. King h1. We now understand the idea. This rook defends the bishop. Queen h5 now instead of f4, which was playable. And Wei Yi actually heads in the wrong direction. Knight g6 is a top move here. Best defensive move. Maybe looks like you're about to get blown away. But you're not. There's enough defensive resources around the king. This, however, makes things a lot scarier. e5. And if you cut the board in half, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 5 pieces of the army not supporting the king. Prague wants to attack. And this is where Wei Yi gets spooked. Knight d4, maybe headed to f5 is a good way to play. But he does this. Trying to stop knight e4. But rook d3, wonderful little lift. Rook f8 is best to cover f7. But this is played, allowing rook f3. What are you doing, Wei Yi? That is a crash through there. Sure, you've won the e-pawn, but look at your king position. It's in tatters. What is going on here? Pressure now on the d7 bishop. You do have to be a bit careful of not getting branked. But Prague's got it under control. Bishop drops back. Don't take. You get branked. That's back and ranked. Back ranked. Branked. A portmanteau. A term first used by Lewis Carroll, as I understand it. Now we see this pawn h3. Giving some luft. Takes on d1. Knight recaptures here. And rook g8's now played. Forget the exact reason for that move. But it's basically attacked. And this is its best square to cover the king, I think. Yeah, if you went to the d file, I guess there's going to be rook f8 stuff soon. Maybe. Anyway, this is the best square. This hits the queen. She slides to d6. Bit of pressure here. Knight re-enters the game. Of course, headed to e4, to g5 in some lines. And there's these incredible checkmating ideas on the way. Knight d4's not best, but played. Knight e4 in response, queen into e5, f4 gets it out the way. We won't keep lingering on every decision. It's incredible chess by Prague here. You can't take the queen. This is a smothered mate. We'd all love to play it, but it only happens in blitz. This is classical chess. These are the best players in the world. Knight's pressured, queen covers, and sets up a sneaky threat of a check, winning the queen. So queen c1 check. That is an entire rook, which you've just blundered. Hang on, no you haven't. Oh no, my queen. Oh no, my rook. Oh no, your king. So you can't take the rook. So we see h6 to give some Lufthansa. Rook e4 hits the knight. Now it takes on b3. Losing my breath over here. Way too excited. King into h7. Rook c4. Double whammy. And something shocking's on the way. In this position, Praggnanandhaa can literally win an entire bishop with knight takes. Now you do have to calculate a bit, because say b5 is the top move here, rook c3, something like this, and check. And it looks like a perpetual, but it's not quite. Rook covers the square. Yes, you can check here, but the king steps onto its safe squares, puts its running shoes on, and it scurries away. There's a number of lines, but it gets away. Prague, I guess, got spooked of a perpetual. I'm not sure, but he didn't win the free bishop. He played queen c7. I guess X-ray defending the pawn. Now we get this. Rook into e4. Back to c2 was a lot better. Let's see how the game went. Rook now pressured, back to e1, pressured some more, over to f1. Now bishop a6, Looks incredibly ugly, just staring into a pawn. But we're going to see the point here. First and foremost, you save it on the only possible square. b4 was actually really strong, locking it in jail. And if queen takes, I can't remember the follow-up. Maybe it's check back here, I think. And then you start hunting the king. But in the game, queen c6. And it looks great. You hit the bishop. You win the bishop, right? No siree. This is what Wei Yi's got planned. Rook d8. Fine, take my bishop. I take your knight. And so because of that, the knight heads to f7. Rook d7 hits it again. Queen e4 check. g6 only move to stay in the game. If queen takes here, which looks amazing, there's then bishop b7, leaving the rook to be pressured because you're threatening mate here. I mean, this is some exceptional defense from Wei Yi. It really is. Pragg now finds another stunning move in his own right. f5. If knight e5, by the way, there is rook g7 to cover g6. Now the point here, well, e takes is played in the game. If g takes, you've opened up the 6th rank. So takes on e6 now threatens this deadly check. I guess not quite mating, but close. Also hits the bishop. So we didn't see that. E takes was the move. Queen e8 threatens mate in 1. That's why we get the queen centralizing, covering the square. Rook f3, and it sets such a deadly trap. If you play the natural bishop b7, hit the rook, there's this absolute sneak attack. Rook d3. And the point is that if you take, you've distracted the queen from the h8 square. If you move somewhere, I don't know where, f6 let's say, well, you lose an entire rook, of course. So don't do bishop b7. It was spotted. The rook just simply sidesteps. Now upon rook d3, where you can go queen f6, queen g7, different squares. Now knight e5 was tried. Queen and knight converging. Rook covering here. And honestly, it's just only move after only move from Wei Yi to stay in the game. They're pretty forced, so it's understandable he found them. But still impressive. And unbelievably, despite all this pressure, Wei Yi is alive. I wouldn't say he's kicking. I wouldn't say he's thriving. But he's alive. And Prague's got nothing better but to swap the queens. Swap the minor pieces. And here they agreed a draw. Because simply rook takes. You could get a line like this. Some pawns start getting mopped up. And we end up with 3 versus 3. White's got the outside, but it's not enough. They know how to hold this at this level. Drawn game. Unbelievable that Wei Yi held that, and Prague messed it up. But that's how it went. Let's jump to Hikaru, our final game of the day. He opens a game with the English in Cyprus, the American. It's explosive. Andrei Esipenko having a bit of a lackluster tournament. Goes for something incredibly solid again. But fair play, he's outgunned by these guys, so he's trying to keep it all together. We get another pawn cube. We do love to see it. Always shave the pube. Now the queen takes. Let's rattle through these moves here, because I'm not going to lie. Black's got the IQP, isolated queen's pawn, but it gets liquidated fast and hard, like this. You could even take, by the way. Still the endgame slightly better for white. This pawn can get covered by the king. Easier than this pawn can get covered. But there's not much in it. This was the line selected, however. By the way, if takes, there's this cute little tactic. Queen takes. If takes, then this. If this, then this, then this, then still this. And this and this. So that's quite a nice one. So pawn takes was played. And Hikaru gets a smidgeroo of pressure. Let's see how it went here. You know, he's got the better pawn structure. He wants to grind, grind, grind. Like a grandmother. Deep into the end game. Really shake it and bop it. He's got wonderful moves. We know he can do it on the board. He does indeed win a pawn. However, these guys know their end games. Honestly, that's why I love Lotus. I've never had an app to actually show me how to play endgames, how to defend, how to win them, everything like that. This is a draw, but only if you know how. Andre knows how. His king's active, his rook's in front of the pawn. It's a drawn position. Can he prove it? Well, I think you can guess the way this is going. Yes, he can prove it. It takes about 90 moves or so. But on move 92, king e4, Hikaru throws in the towel and draws the game. Not throws in the towel and resigns. So let's check out the standings. Here they are. Sindarov still leading on 7 points. Giri is now the chasing horse, a point ahead of everyone else. Then you got Fabi still in third despite the awful run he's been on. And okay, then you just got a whole bunch of losers, in the words of Anish Giri. I hope you enjoyed this one. Do have a look at the video on the screen if you want to see some more epic chess. Slightly longer recap today. Hope you still enjoyed. And check out Lotus Chess, link in the description. Very, very good app. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers.